Mhm. Okay. So I mean, I suppose I don't know. I hope people know who I am. It's not, otherwise it'll be a little bit awkward. So a few of you might know me from Boilerplate, HTML5 Boilerplate, that I've been working with Paul Irish and other people. And I also did HTML5please.com. And we recently released an API that supports something with it. So I actually work as a web opener for Opera, and what that means is I try to contact web developers to see how they can fix their sites to work in Opera, and also write posts on developing with standards and so on. And so today I actually have not prepared anything to speak about specifically, but I was thinking I could sort of run through a presentation I gave about creating prototypes in HTML, and that I gave at Frontiers actually. Let me just get started. Can I send a link? Would that work? No, it's the same link I sent to you, so I guess. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know how I can share a screen because this is not my machine. So, okay, never mind. It's nothing much to see anyway. So, well, people can look at it on their own machines. I suppose it's not. I mean, it's not important that they have to see it on the big screen. Yeah. Uh, so, I think the point that I was trying to make at Frontiers is that, and I think a lot of people have made it much more clearer these days, and it's more obvious, is that web development is no longer about pixel pushing, and it's no longer Photoshop comps and mockups, and it's all about product development. It's creating a product, interacting with it. So there's no point making comps that are static and barely have any interaction that gets signed off on. And my view is that people should start understanding that way forward and creating prototypes in HTML rather than creating static comps. And to do that, what I was recommending and what I would recommend still is using abstractions as a way of out of complexity. Um, using preprocessors, JavaScript libraries, tools, build tools, and all those things to make it very quick to create prototypes with. And to that end, I suppose HTML5 boilerplate also helps in having your own default set of templates to quickly start any projects with, because that's your good default. So I guess what also helps in because having these abstractions is that you need to because the way web development is right now is that you have HTML5, you have CSS3, and you have SVG, blah blah blah, and none of these work as advertised. When you say HTML5 use this right now, it doesn't actually do exactly the same thing in all browsers. Sometimes it's not performant, or sometimes it behaves weirdly in Android browser or something like that. And sometimes browsers just lie. And it is not in your best interest to try to keep up with finding out exactly which browser does what. And for each and every minute feature of HTML5, it's very overwhelming to try to keep track of them. And so there are libraries that allow or do this for you. And if you have polyfills, if you think especially a feature is very relevant or something like that, uh, take advantage of what is available, because the future that's available to us is pretty overwhelming. And this is where tools like HTML5 Please, which lists all the polyfills that are available, uh, that you could use or that we recommend, and then all the frameworks that help you do these things better. And I would also like to recommend Sass for CSS. How many of you would do CSS stuff? Okay, almost all of you. Okay, how many of you use preprocessors? Oh, so I'm just preaching to the choir then. So I guess I don't have to say anything too much. I guess then I don't even have to say use Sass because use Sass. That's like very obvious. And um, I think what I guess you must have also seen that the CSS3 is introducing some of the features that you'll see in Sass, like variables being the first of them. And well, that's a good advantage in that you would start to see be able to move most of your Sass stuff into CSS, and that is pretty good to know. And what else can we say? Um, how many of you use build tools? Sorry, go ahead. No, it will never happen. No, we all love Sass. All of us love Sass, but the problem is HTML5 boilerplate is not just being used by people who use Sass. And I think we did a survey and a lot of people used it straight out of the box. So if we have Sass in, it's just going to make it more complicated. So that's not going to happen. Yeah, I mean, we discussed this. It keeps coming up, and but you know, Nicholas Gallagher is working on creating something like a framework for snippets that are um, what do you call that? That you know that are like components that you could use with associated CSS, JS, JavaScript, and HTML. Like for example, if you wanted a tabbed box, there will be a component available that you could use with HTML5 boilerplate. He's still working on it, but that uses Sass extensively, and so hopefully the associated projects might see Sass or any of the other preprocessors, but boilerplate itself most likely won't. Yeah. And what was I saying? How many of you guys use the build script? Any build script? Okay. Oh, that's cool. Um, uh, Others, what do you guys do? I mean, just deploy? Mm. How? I mean, obviously, I'll ask you to use the build script. Oh well, HTML5 boilerplate has the ant build script, which is great. But we also are shifting towards the Node build script that we have, and which is almost, I think, functionally equivalent to the Ant build script. And what the build script does is combine all CSS files into one, and then you can it minifies them, and concats all the script files into one, minifies them, and uh, adds them into the all the HTML pages as one line instead of multiple lines of CSS or multiple lines of JavaScript. And you can also have optionally minimize your HTML itself and reduce your file size even further. What else does it do? Yeah, I think that's the biggest. Oh, I'm hearing a lot of echo. Things that it does. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just hearing myself a little loudly. Okay. And if you have a cache manifest file, we can generate that automatically from the resources that you have in the Ansible script. So that's also something that it does. And let's see if I have. Okay, and how will I hear you guys? Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, because it's really loud for me. I can't find this. Okay. So our ant build script also has many options that you could use. I'm just trying to find a link to a presentation I gave on the build script, but I can't find it. Um, anyway, I think I could just send it to you on Twitter or something. So yeah, multiple options in the build script. So you could just minimize the text, or you can also minimize the images, other resources, and so on. And what else do we have? So yeah, those are the things that we have, but it does require you to have Java installed and and so there are some minimum qualification like requirements that you need to fulfill before you use the build script, which is why I think a lot of people were hesitant to use it. Also, it's command line only, and I guess that doesn't work quite as well. But yeah, that's what we've been doing at Boilerplate. Anyway, I don't know. I'm like kind of out of topics to talk about, but if you guys have any suggestions, I'm open. Yes. Yeah. 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 Hmm. Yeah. Um, well, I think it's good that Paul and I have kind of jobs that are relevant to HTML5 boilerplate. So, in the sense, it's in our interest to maintain it for work or otherwise. And Nicholas also freelances for a while, as far as I know, and I think he's looking to for a position. I'm not sure. So all of us do not spend like whole days and nights working on our open source projects, but especially for boilerplate, we well, most what me, Paul, and Nicholas do is just look at issues as they come, and if it's very trivial, like a merging of a pull request of a typo, we just do it instantly, like that. That doesn't even it doesn't require much thinking at all. So we just do it. And otherwise, if it requires any kind of effort in researching and seeing if it is worth its while, we just push it to some day of the week when we are freer to work on it, and then someone gets on and closes the tickets. Most of the time, if you would notice, all our work is geared when we have a release, and typically that's when most of the tickets are closed. And especially if you have tickets that are acrimonious, like I think we had some crazy trolley tickets that we just left open because it was too acrimonious to resolve them. And then when we did resolve, oh yeah, I think it was SAS versus CSS. We had a lot of uh, you know quarrels on that, I suppose, on the bug tracker. But yeah, I mean, typically for us, it's much easier to manage pull requests that are very detailed and easy to pull because the reasoning is very clear. But if you have a pull request that's not very obvious what to do, it's most likely going to be delayed for a while before we even take any action on it. And there are some pull requests which will never take action on, like changing the hot pink color. It's not going to happen. Don't try too hard. So Then some people do pull requests for white space cleanups, which I guess we do accept, but sometimes it's annoying because your commits are a bit noisy because of that. Otherwise, we also have I think we've had multiple pull requests for the SAS change. Again, that's like not going to happen. But there are forks that are maintaining equivalent, are trying to maintain feature parity with HTML5 boilerplate. So that's what we recommend. And I think someone was also mentioning something about tabs versus spaces. And no, we are all recommenders and users of spaces, and it's just too bad. So yeah, I guess for us it's just finding time to work on the projects, and typically, mostly the time is when we have or we think a release is necessary. Uh, SCSS. Sorry, I don't like white space significance. I just don't. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, yeah. I know that. I know. I know. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Oh, okay. Um, I don't like putting people's on pedestals at all. I mean, I have been there, being a fan of people like Zeldman and Mayer, Eric Mayer. I've been one of those people, but I realized it's not. When you do put people on a pedestal, you also uh, do not give them the confidence to fail, because you assume everything they do or say is going to be accurate and true and valid all the time. That's never going to be the case, because everyone is human. And also, when you put people on a pedestal, it lets you off the hook for verifying the actual facts of what you think the idols you're worshiping are doing, and calling them out when they are saying or doing incorrect things, or maybe even wrong things. There are people in 2000 when all of us were ex-HTML fanatics, and we were all XML was going to lead the way, and that's what we were going to do. And all the people that we believed in the same thing. And there were a few people who didn't, but they were not idols, so they didn't get much of the benefit of being heard from. But then again, it all changed, and now JavaScript is in XML's position. Well, again, if you put people on pedestal, and if you're gonna drink the Kool-Aid of JavaScript, it's just gonna be you need and if it fails, then it's gonna be again that our fault, not the idol's fault or whoever they are. And I do not think we should be putting people under that pressure of trying to live up to fans' expectations or whatever. But that's just why I do not believe in giving awards and ceremonies and what do you call that, fame, or no, I think it's not good. No. Anything else? I think Opera has a mute. Oh, yeah, sorry. Opera has a significant market share in a lot of developing countries, especially because of Opera Mini, and also because people know Opera Mini, they also use Opera on their desktop devices and so on. So that goes further, and it is also because Opera is, I think, almost the only browser that has these features that allow them to serve um, or download assets that are faster than other browsers because of Opera Turbo Mode, which compresses files on Opera servers before sending it over, and so that it's much quicker and smaller. And so that's the primary reason why it's quite popular in all these developing countries and Russia and India and so on. But I guess in US, Opera has never had a significant market share, which is why it's always being thought of as the underdog and something that people have to care about if you are a good developer and not because you are a developer. So that's about it. Does that answer the question? Okay, cool. Oh yeah, it was David's story. Yeah, yeah, that's true, and that's a good way to frame that discussion, I suppose. So at least people would know it's not just a small browser that one or two people use in this world. So yeah, yeah, yeah. Opera next, yes. Uh, well, Opera Next and Canary is more like a nightly build. We don't have a nightly build, and Opera Next is like at best the Chrome dev builds that you get. They are equivalent in that sense, and Opera Next is where all the new features that would be getting in the stable would be in, and we have frequent releases, I think, and we are going to have one soon. That's all I guess I can say. But it's going to be a very exciting release, personally for me, because it has two significant things that are exciting to talk about, and hopefully it's within the next 3 days or 4 days. But yeah, I mean, in terms, Opera Next is where you should be testing your web development, your pages or whatever. If you're just looking for a feature that's not available in the current Opera browser and you're looking to see if it's available in the next version. And Opera also does auto updates, so people do not are not left in the lurch for older version of Opera. And I think Opera works even in Win2K, as far as I know. I think it's one of the few browsers that does, but it provides all the benefits of HTML5 to older operating systems too. So yeah, I think Opera Next is where you should be testing all the Edge HTML5 demos. Oh, right. Uh, what features? Oh, I can't tell. You will find out in, I think, about 3 or 4 days. Yeah, but yeah, I think hopefully by Monday you'll know. But it's pretty exciting. No, nope, not telling. I mean, I don't know. It's good to tell, I suppose, but I don't know. It's good to keep you guys on the toes, maybe. Who knows? But I can tell you what's I don't know. Is it a boring topic to talk about what CSS features I like or I'm excited about? But I could say. No, so sad. But that doesn't mean I'm giving any hints. No. Um, okay, let's see. Uh, what I am personally excited about is getting InDesign in the browser, which I think Adobe is doing quite a bit of. So you have the exclusions. How many of you know what exclusions are? Anybody? Okay, almost no one. So exclusions is like, let me see, can I send a link? All right. Oh. Okay. I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is an image. And what exclusions does is to wrap text in an irregular or around an irregular shape. And that was never possible with HTML CSS before. So all you could do in terms of design was to create rectangles at the most. But now with exclusions, you would be able to create, a line and place text like you would in a magazine or in a graphical layout. So this is pretty interesting because it's new for the web. It was, with Flash, you could sort of, because it was Flash, place it in a awkward manner, but in the web, it was not possible at all. So at least now you have this choice available to you to have text placed in whatever way you like. And there's also, I think, it's in tandem, not quite tandem, but similar stuff is regions. CSS regions is where you can let text flow from one container to the other, irrespective of where the containers are. So you could have a container on the top left, the container at the on the next page, and the text can flow between these two containers. And this is almost like reading a magazine, where the text, you'll have like two separate boxes and text flow between the boxes, and there's graphics in between and things like that. So you no longer are dependent on the layout for indicating or giving you an indication of what direction the text should flow in. And I think what's also being introduced in CSS is a lot more typographic features, like you would now have the option to use open type ligatures and use those tweakings of settings in open type using font ligature settings, and that has never been possible before. And I think Moz Hacks has a good article on it. Look for that. Yeah, this is the one. And there are a lot more internationalization stuff in CSS typography that's coming up, which is awesome to know that other languages are also now being considered, not just English and or Latin languages. And what else do I like? Well, there's also Flexbox. I don't want to be too happy about it. The only reason is the old Flexbox still exists in the wild, and I don't want people to keep using the old Flexbox. The new Flexbox is almost done, and we should have that soon. And hopefully, we all can start using that. And there's also the grid layout, and I think that's still getting some work done. And well, as you can see, layouts are pretty interesting to me, but there's also CSS shaders. And I think Tony was saying he's messing around with that, shaders and filters or something like that. But so what shaders would do is to bring OpenGL, WebGL shaders to CSS. So you could have, typically these days it's fashionable to have noisy background images for your websites. And if you had CSS shaders, you could do it within a page dynamically instead of having an image, as a background image. Or you can have crinkly paper and things like that, or have irregular shapes. And if you combine all of these together, it seems like you'll have a very rich way of expressing graphics on your page without using images. And that's a pretty interesting to know. And the CSS filters is where you could use blur effects and sharpen, colorize, things like that. Basically apply filters to your selectors. And that would be interesting to see how browsers would implement and have that on your pages as well. So again, ways to remove more graphical, assets from your websites. So that's what I find interesting. Of course, I did not give away any of the Opera stuff. Just saying. Variables. So SAS had I guess SAS was the first to have variables, then less came along and it also has variables. So essentially what variables are ways to represent a fragment of data that can be repeated over and over several times at several places as values. So CSS variables kind of brings SAS's implementation of variables to CSS, which means you'll have declaration, you declare a variable and you can reuse, it'll be, as far as it'll be declared globally, and you can use it everywhere, wherever you want a value for a property. And it'll be like a string representation that you can use. So you can have background color, colon, and the variable, which would be dark background color, light background color with appropriate syntax, and that should work. But it's like, I think it's a very, very basic first draft right now, and it needs to have several discussions and iterations and fights in the CSS working group meetings before it gets anywhere close to implemented in different browsers. I think Chrome has, I'm sure Chrome should be working on some sort of an implementation, or if it is not already, because Tab is proposing it anyway. And what I guess Tab also wanted to propose mix-ins, but the working group was not so receptive to mix-ins as it is, or as it is for variables. And I guess we're going to start with that. So anything else? Or does that answer your question? Oh, whether it should be in or not? Oh, I'm not sure how the data property impedes on having variables, because they are pretty different. Well, first of all, I think using data properties for doing what, well, you're saying you want to use the attribute function to get the value from the data property and use that as a value for CSS. Is that what you're saying? Oh no, I don't know. Well, I think the data properties right now, to use it in that manner would be right now a hack. I think CSS variables would be, well, I think, anyway, there are two different issues. CSS variables make it be able to program your style sheets, which, well, not exactly that, but it's the beginning of actually being able to control and write style sheets that are maintainable. And and data attributes are satisfy quite a different requirement, which is to add more data that is relevant to the content that you're marking up. And if it also is relevant to your style sheets, you would be using that to uh, use it as a value for your style sheet, but not otherwise. It's not supposed to be exactly something you'd use specifically for style sheets. So if you have data attribute that you're using styling, make sure it's very obvious that that's what it's for, and not for using in JavaScript based interactions and so on. So I think if we can have variables that's I mean, it's also a different use case. Like data attributes, as far as I know, have been abused for styling, if I can call that, for creating icon fonts and using the icon fonts to represent uh, the icon for each of these texts that you have. So if you have a compose button and you want that icon, you have a data attribute with a letter, and you use that attribute function in CSS to take that letter and display the equivalent font icon that is in the font face that you're using, that is a web font. And that's a very narrow use case, I think. But I don't think that will be solved with variables. And variables are more for the generic case of having multiple themes and so on, where you have you want the light blue theme or dark blue theme, and just changing one set of variables would change everything on your style sheet, which would be much more easy to reuse rather than the way you would do with data variables. Okay. Mm, yeah. Um, oh, it's one of the two. Okay, I'll choose the font thingy because Octopress is like a everyone's doing it these days. No fun. So, with respect to the font bold issue, so I think it keeps biting a lot of people almost all the time because when you are using a bold font, Google recommends, well, if you're using Google Web Fonts or any of the other free font libraries, it recommends you use font weight normal. But the problem is if you're using it as a way to uh, render text that is a heading or a strong element, which by default have font weight bold applied to it, what happens is browsers think that you are supplying them with the least heavy version of the font face, which means they need to find a heavier version of that particular font to apply to these headings and strong elements, because the default style for these elements is font weight bold. But when you say in your at font face rule that your font you're supplying has font weight normal, you're saying that you're not supplying the heavier version of that font to the browser. So the browser needs, what browsers always do is that if there is no heavier version of that font available, they will synthetically generate the heavy version of that font. So they will start trying to generate that synthetic version of that heavy font that you're using as a web font. And because this is not like a spec consistent way of applying this heavy weight of that particular font, different browsers do different things, and Firefox does the worst. I mean, we can't call it the worst because some people say it's the easiest way to catch that you're doing it wrong, but the font weight increases several times and it looks really ugly because it's not been custom, it's not using the font weight that's a designer has designed, but it's just something that has been generated. And so it occupies a lot more space, and especially if you're using slab fonts, it looks really, really ugly. And the way to fix that would be, if you're using a slab font as a web font for headings and strong elements, etc., you would have to use the font weight property and declare it as bold in the at font face rule itself, because that tells the browser that that font is already a bold font and you do not have to synthesize any bolder versions of that font. You just use that font. So that makes the browsers not do all their, magic of creating artificial font weights. Is that something clear or? Okay, cool. Yeah. Mm. I completely agree with you because I think that's the future that we are going to move forward to. And, I think a lot of this newfound love for Octopress and that kind of static file generators is also because of that kind of view of everything moving to client side. You don't need exactly some server side, SQL database or anything of that kind. It's you want to do everything on the client side, and having, as you said, use the server side frameworks to generate just JSON output. That's the kind of future I think we are already in, and everyone's going towards that. But there's also all these people who are not that. I guess what made these frameworks pretty awesome at the time was that all these famous or large utilitarian companies adopting it. And I guess when we have large utilitarian companies adopting the newer frameworks, we'll like, suppose, well, Twitter is already doing it and GitHub's also doing a lot of things client side. So if you have that move, and I guess we'll see more of that in a lot more places. And I guess we'll still have sites like Wikipedia, which may not use client side, you know, client heavy kind of workflow, but maybe they would because I don't see why it won't be helpful for them. So I feel like this distinction between sites and apps is a pretty fluid one because everyone's using a lot of these intensive dynamic updates and uh, the heavy client side generation that we typically did not use a while before. Any does that is it clear or is that okay? Cool. Anything else? Oh, okay, cool. Have you guys used api.html5please.com? Oh yes. Any suggestions? Oh, that's so sad. Oh, that's very nice of you. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because we use user agent sniffing, so it's like everyone's a bit hesitant, but we only do that so that we don't throw the user in a loop by suggesting mobile browsers to download, which obviously they can't use on a desktop device. So the only reason we have user agent sniffing is for that. But essentially, what it does is suggest users to find browsers where the union of features you're looking for would be available. And I don't think that's possible right now with any of these feature detection mechanisms that you have. Or you have to write your own. And this is basically tapping into, can I use this database to create that list? So I don't know, I felt like that was a good thing to do. And I created a request some time ago, and John Neal jumped on it and did it in PHP, so which was pretty awesome. So yeah, I mean, if you guys have any feedback on that, I would be very happy to take it. Yes. Uh, it's F3 5. So what's what's no? It's basically festal in lead numbers. So FE5 fest T. What is T? 1 4. No, is it? Sorry, I don't quite remember. Uh, yeah, I am. I am. I'm trying to type it down and I can't find it. Oh well, too bad. Yeah. Uh, okay. Sorry for not having anything prepared. I just thought. I am in the midst of some doing some crazy busy shit, and I'm like, oh, it's just too much to prepare. I'm so sorry. No problem. Cool. Yeah. Thank you.